My younger brother, a streamer in a group, insisted on meeting a wealthy patron who had donated hundreds of thousands of yuan to him. In a video call, he gleefully showed off the gift the rich woman had sent. But the moment he opened it, his face turned ashen, filled with utter disbelief. 3 days later, my brother went missing. My parents, their eyes red-rimmed, cursed at me. If you had just knelt and begged him then, would this have happened? They drugged me and sold me to an old, single man in a remote mountain village. I went insane for 13 years, eventually swallowing a handful of yellow earth, despairingly taking my own life. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my younger brother packing his bags. My parents again told me to persuade him. I suddenly grabbed their wrists tightly. A family should be complete whole. Why don't you both go with him? The words had barely left my lips when a powerful slap landed on my head, ringing in my ears. I stumbled back 2 steps and fell miserably to the ground. Guoping Liu's vulgar curses erupted. What the hell are you talking about, telling you to persuade your brother? What nonsense are you spouting? Thuc Lan Ha's voice was shrill, her eyes wide with fury. And you call yourself a lawyer? You're pushing your brother into a pit of fire. What kind of sister are you? Minh Triet Liu, veins throbbing in his neck, accused me. Ban Ha, didn't I tell you to tell Mom and Dad I was going on a trip? How dare you reveal my secret? His eyes were bloodshot. This is my chance to change my life. Don't get in my way, all of you. Don't worry about me anymore. Don't make me hate you forever. I suddenly trembled. I remembered my past life. At this very moment, right after my brother had said those words, my parents' expressions had changed. They exchanged glances, then suddenly said, Ban Ha, we have something to attend to outside. You're his older sister and a lawyer. We're not as articulate as you. You stay and talk some sense into your brother. Only now did I truly understand. They were afraid of incurring my brother's resentment, wanting me to be the villain. Thinking this, I struggled to crawl up from the ground. I had been careless, letting these 2 creatures, worse than pigs or dogs, slap me. But they wouldn't dare treat me like they did in my past life. The happiest person in the house was Minh Triet Liu. He sprang up. Sister, you mean you support me? I nodded, telling him that I knew a relative of a colleague. This relative had met the #1 wealthy donor, someone so successful that their entire family had ascended to a higher status, instantly bypassing centuries of struggle. Everyone in the village was green with envy. I looked at Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha. Dad, haven't you always wanted to buy a car? To the rich, buying a car is like us buying a bottle of water. By then, you could pay cash for the latest model, no problem. Mom, haven't you always complained that our house is too small? By then, Minh Triet will be living in a grand villa with the wealthy madam. You and Dad can live in a smaller villa in Kaiozai, and I can look after our old house. It'll be perfect, won't it? After a moment, the 3 of them across from me fell silent. After a moment, Thuc Lan Ha looked at me suspiciously. Is it really that good? Why would someone just give us money? I was about to speak when Minh Triet Liu raised an eyebrow, cutting me off. Because she likes me, of course. She's already donated nearly 200,000 yuan in gifts alone. Rich women aren't short on money, they're only short on love. Minh Triet Liu had said the exact same thing to me in my past life. To persuade him, I had researched hundreds of similar cases, meticulously explaining them to him. But he had given me a glass of water laced with sleeping pills and still boarded the private plane arranged by the wealthy madam. Thinking this, I clenched my fists. Guoping Liu was already lost in dreams of driving a luxury car, but Thuc Lan Ha still hesitated. I told Minh Triet Liu to show them his bank balance. They only knew their son performed some kind of leg sweep, dance, or floor cleaning, dance online. They had no idea he was earning so much. Their eyes widened in astonishment. So many zeros, I pressed on, capitalizing on their surprise. He's only been doing this for 3 months, and that woman has already rewarded him so much. She must genuinely like him. Besides, he's a man. How bad could it possibly get? She's invited him to Jing City. It's very safe there. Thuc Lan Ha's last shred of doubt vanished. Minh Triet Liu was overjoyed, happily packing his bags, ready to depart first class at any moment, off to enjoy the good life. I watched his retreating back one last time, then turned and walked out. In this life, I won't advise you. I want to see if this is your golden opportunity or your fatal disaster. The moment Minh Triet Liu arrived at the hotel, he video called us. Thuc Lan Ha eagerly asked Minh Triet Liu, have you met the wealthy madam yet? Is she a respectable person? Minh Triet Liu casually replied, of course she's respectable. She likes me to death. Just then, the doorbell rang in the video. Minh Triet received an exquisite box from the hotel service staff. Guoping Liu's voice was tinged with excitement. "Son, is that a gift from the wealthy madam?" "Such a big box, it must be something expensive." Minh Triet's face lit up with joy as he eagerly opened the box. However, on the video screen, his expression immediately froze, his face turned pale, his entire body motionless, only his hands trembling incessantly. Thucklan Ha and Guoping Liu practically wanted to crawl through the screen to see what could have made their son so utterly stunned. "Son, quickly, show Mom and Dad what the gift is." To their surprise, Minh Triet seemed to snap out of a trance, abruptly uttering, "Something's come up." Then he hastily ended the video call. Only I noticed the fleeting look of horror on his face. Thucklan Ha was still slightly worried. Guoping Liu chastised her. "What nonsense are you worrying about? It must be an extremely expensive gift. Our son rushed off to call and thank the wealthy madam. That's called winning over the big shot." I sneered inwardly. Only he knows so much. Watching female streamers every day, donating quite a bit of money. He must have been won over quite a lot himself, huh? I tried to caution them. "We should call Minh Triet less often these days. We don't want to bother him and the wealthy madam." To my surprise, Thucklan Ha disagreed. "What's there to be afraid of? My Minh Triet inherited my good looks. How could he not utterly charm the wealthy madam?" I quickly shook my head. "I've heard that rich people are often moody. It wouldn't be good if they ended up clashing with Minh Triet." Only then did Thucklan Ha nod in agreement. Guoping Liu also looked as if he had a sudden realization. "Being a lawyer is good, you know a lot." I found this strange. Guoping Liu either had his head caught in a door or simply lacked a brain. I leaned towards the latter, as the cases I handled were all major criminal ones. Every client I represented either had multiple lives on their hands or was involved in major cases. He could go figure it out himself. Guoping Liu's voice rang out again. This time, what I heard almost made me vomit. You should get married off soon and get it over with. The older you get, the less valuable you become." This man also felt he was about to get rich through his son, so his daughter's bride price was no longer worth much. Otherwise, in my past life, at least until it was confirmed that Minh Triet truly couldn't return, they had maintained a superficial peace with me. I suddenly remembered my past life. It was after I had borne that man several children that he finally allowed me to move freely within the village. I had no phone. I relied on talking to people in the village to find out the date, the month, and what was happening in the outside world. News about Minh Triet I overheard by chance when a villager was scrolling through Douyin. He had only recently been found. It turned out the top donor he'd met in person was not at all kind, but engaged in even more perverse games. Minh Triet was tortured day and night by her methods, leaving him neither human nor alive. In the comment section, someone claiming to be an insider spoke in detail about the dirty secrets of the elite, their depraved games, some true, some embellished. In my past life, I couldn't witness it firsthand, but in this life, I could. The next afternoon, Minh Triet called. The moment the call connected, his face was pressed close, filling the screen. His eyes were deeply sunken, his entire face showing the ravages of excessive indulgence. The moment he opened his mouth, his voice was hoarse and choked with sobs. "Sister, oh sister, I want to come home. I couldn't say it before." I glanced at Minh Triet's neck and wrists, feeling a surge of schadenfreude, almost bursting into laughter. Fortunately, years of being a lawyer had taught me to hide my emotions. No matter how foolish the plaintiff or defendant, no matter how bizarre the case, I could handle it with seriousness and calm. But what I truly thought inside, others never knew. I looked at the tears in Minh Triet's eyes, feigning innocence. "What's wrong, dear? Tell me everything. I'm your sister. I'll definitely help you." Minh Triet fell silent. I calmly watched him stammer for a while, unable to articulate the reason. "Anyway, I want to come home. I regret it. I shouldn't have come here. That woman? I can't do this anymore. Isn't it enough that you earn money at home, sister?" In my past life, they'd said I, the lawyer, earned a lot of money, while Minh Triet struggled to earn his. They used the debt of raising me to force me to provide for them, never caring that I had to work until midnight every day. They never knew I'd been splashed with paint and pelted with rotten eggs by an enraged client in a crowd, cursed at in the vilest ways. Minh Triet actually earned quite a bit, but he never gave them any money. Thuc Lan Ha and Guoping Liu didn't even ask. After all, the money in the house was for Minh Triet Liu, so why bother asking? On the contrary, they casually made me bear all the household expenses alone. This love was truly biased. In my past life, I was foolish and couldn't bear to cut ties. But thinking of how this love from Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha was about to become the sharpest knife to kill Minh Triet Liu, I no longer felt angry. Thinking this, I deliberately asked Minh Triet Liu, "So, do you want me to tell Mom and Dad?" Minh Triet Liu's face filled with panic, his voice rising several octaves. His expression, a little too forceful, became oddly distorted. "No, don't tell Mom and Dad yet, sister. I just realized it too. You're actually the one who supports me the most in this family. I'm only telling you this." Minh Triet Liu covered his face, sounding as if he was about to break. As he recounted all the inhumane abuses he had endured last night, my heart bloomed with a cruel joy. Not only was I happy because Minh Triet Liu was suffering, but also because what he said was almost identical to what that insider had revealed in the comment section in my past life. So, weren't the even more horrific things that happened to Minh Triet Liu later also true? I couldn't wait to verify it. In the video, Minh Triet Liu was crying silently. At that moment, I felt like a dog, so humiliating. Damn it, she's a complete lunatic. I remained silent for a few seconds, then suddenly asked, "So did she leave you anything?" Minh Triet Liu turned his head to look off camera, his tone somewhat conflicted. She left me 100,000 yuan. I thought to myself, there's hope. So I adopted the persuasive tone I used when arguing for a client. 100,000 yuan? That's actually a lot, isn't it? Rich people all have their perverse games. You must know that. You must have been prepared at first, it's just that you clearly weren't prepared enough. But that's okay. If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. Think about it. What did you do to earn 100,000 yuan in one night? Minh Triet Liu, for all his calculations, was still just coming of age, having entered the chaotic live streaming industry too early. That great divat had long since raised his moral threshold above that of ordinary people. In other words, what others couldn't accept, he could, with a little thought, rationalize. In my past life, I advised him, being young, to seize the opportunity to study and improve himself, not to chase after wealthy patrons. In this life, I told him, lucky you're still young, otherwise how could you earn 100,000 yuan in one night? Just be secretly happy about it. Minh Triet Liu's face was torn, as if he was struggling to decide if my words were true. I didn't press him, nor did I suggest asking our parents. Minh Triet Liu hastily refused, as if trying to convince himself, muttering, "What's there to be afraid of? I'm a man, after all. In the end, she's the one losing out." Don't some of my colleagues also have ambiguous relationships with wealthy patrons? I'm not the only one. Who knows, maybe they don't even earn as much as I do. I nodded, satisfied, adding fuel to the fire. After all, it's a society governed by law now. At worst, you run away. If not, you just report it to the police, right? Minh Triet Liu looked as if I was right. I watched him, barely suppressing a laugh. Before hanging up, he repeatedly emphasized that I absolutely must not tell Mom and Dad. With earnest eyes, I agreed, coaxing him so completely that he even offered to buy me the latest designer handbag once he conquered the wealthy madam. However, 3 days later, he called me again. This time, he had changed his mind. Minh Triet Liu was even more emaciated, his clothes disheveled. I clucked my tongue, noticing the marks on his body. The moment the video connected, Minh Triet Liu was even more frantic than before. "Sister, I want to come home. I absolutely must come home. If I stay any longer, I'll go mad." I outwardly agreed. All right, come home." But my gaze was fixed behind him. If the revelations from my past life were true, the door behind Minh Triet Liu would suddenly burst open. A rush of people would storm in. In just 1 second, the video call was cut off. I felt at ease. Releasing the tension from my face, I carefully recalled the details of the revelations I had witnessed in my past life. My excited heart pounded. Everything matched up to this point. In other words, Minh Triet Liu's good days were officially over. I calmed my emotions for a moment before picking up the case file I had been reviewing, continuing to take notes. As if I had never received that call, I buried myself in my work. Soon, it was time to leave. First, I took out my phone and called Minh Triet Liu more than 10 times, both voice and video. None were answered. Only then did I, with a trembling voice, frantically leave work and send a voice message to Thuc Lan Ha and Guoping Liu. "It seems something has happened to my brother." I took Thuc Lan Ha and Guoping Liu to the police station to file a report. One of them had just come from a gambling den, still shaking uncontrollably after hearing my words, completely lost and bewildered. The other had just been bragging and drinking with his buddies, his face flushed, reeking of alcohol. The police officer's gaze swept over them, finally landing on me. "You said your brother might be in trouble. What's the reason?" I quickly took out my phone and showed him. Over 10 unanswered calls and video requests, interspersed with my frantic texts asking Minh Triet, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" Thuc Lan Ha beside me suddenly snatched the phone, her red-rimmed eyes quickly scanning the call history. I recounted everything about Minh Triet going to meet the top wealthy donor to the police officer. Finally, I tearfully pleaded with the police, "You must save my brother. He is my parents' life. Nothing can happen to him." At this moment, Thuc Lan Ha suddenly spoke up, pointing at the 2.5-minute video call at the top. She shrieked, "Your brother called you this afternoon. What did he tell you?" The police officer also looked at me, his gaze very cold, so authoritative that one could barely dare to lie in front of him. But I knew I would be fine. I had a perfectly valid alibi and no motive whatsoever. My profession had put me in contact with many public servants like the police, as well as their adversaries, some truly vicious criminals. Moreover, I had personally endured such inhumane abuse. In my past life, I was sold to a man whose entire body was bloated and reeked of a strong stench. His rough, filthy hands traced over my body. After that, I bore him 2 daughters in quick succession, for which he punished me. I was hung upside down from a tree, starved for 3 days and 3 nights. Later, I pretended to be obedient, no longer resisting or trying to escape. I even proactively built good relationships with others in the village. Finally, I found an opportunity and fled the village. I ran and ran and ran, but I had overlooked the fact that the place was surrounded by mountains on all sides, with only one road leading out. The nearby villages colluded, all engaged in the trade of women. How could I possibly escape? I was caught and, in exchange, received a brutal beating that left me half dead. Finally, after I gave birth to who knows how many children, my body reached its limit. I had been insane for a long time, mostly blank, but occasionally lucid. In my last moment of lucidity, I chose to swallow dirt and commit suicide, ending my miserable life. 2 lives of experience, painful memories, had forged a strong inner self within me. I relaxed my clenched jaw, trying to recall. "It was just idle chatter," I said. "My brother said the wealthy madam liked him very much and gave him a lot of money, and that soon he could make our whole family rich." I pointed to Minh Triet's message below. "Sister, I know you're the kindest to me. Once I've won over the wealthy madam, I'll ask her to buy you the latest designer handbag." "Your son even said he'd buy you a handbag. That sounds like things are going well, but why isn't he answering his phone?" I wiped my tears about to speak, when from the corner of my eye I caught sight of a dark figure moving. Guoping Liu, still not sober, his face flushed, raised his hand to strike me again. I quickly shrieked and hid behind the police officer. Guoping Liu missed his swing, shook his blurry eyes, and started cursing at me again. "It's all your fault for telling your brother to go. I think you just want to kill him. If anything happens to him, I'll beat you to death and bury you with him." Thuc Lan Ha also seemed to find an outlet for her anger. She shrieked curses at me. "Your brother said he wanted to go, and you supported him immediately. What are your intentions? Are you even human? I wasted my effort raising you this big." "Raised me this big? How ridiculous. When they were pregnant with me, they went to the hospital demanding a gender test. The hospital refused, so they went to a small clinic, slipped an envelope, and when the test revealed it was a girl, they planned to abandon me. If my grandmother hadn't felt pity and said she would raise me herself, I would have long since become a bloody pulp, flowing into some unknown sewer. In my past life, when the traffickers threw me into the car, I overheard them mention my grandmother. Damn it, what bad luck. When we took this order, an old woman rushed out from who knows where, almost exposing us. Luckily, that useless old hag fainted from a cerebral hemorrhage on her own before she could do anything. Damn it, what bad luck. I'm like a dog. Lying sprawled on the ground, my eyes felt like they would burst, my heart churned as if by a sharp knife, my tears almost dry. That was my grandmother who had raised me since childhood. I clenched my fists, my fingernails digging deep into my flesh. Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha's commotion was significant, drawing the attention of quite a few police officers and bystanders. I hid behind the officer, timidly saying, "When we saw my brother off, we all went together, didn't we? Mom and Dad also agreed. And hadn't they already started looking at cars and houses? I cowered, sobbing, looking utterly terrified. The police officer glared at Thuc Lan Ha and Guoping Liu, his tone clearly displeased. You too are his parents. Do you really expect an older sister to fulfill your duties for you? And furthermore, where do you think you are? You're threatening to beat someone to death and bury them with him. If you two cause any more trouble, you'll go inside and calm down. Thuc Lan Ha and Guoping Liu dared not speak another word, only glaring at me with venomous eyes, as if they wanted to devour me whole. Finally, the police recorded Minh Triet lose specific information and promised to inform us as soon as there was news. When we left, it was already dark. We hadn't taken 2 steps out of the police station before Guoping Liu couldn't contain himself any longer. He started yelling, demanding to beat me to death. Conveniently, I no longer needed to pretend. I forcefully grabbed his arm as he swung it at me, then executed a leg sweep. Unfortunately, Guoping Liu was too heavy, as stable as a rock. I immediately changed tactics, kicking hard at a vulnerable spot on his inner thigh. As he doubled over in pain, I clenched his arm, twisted it behind his back, stepped forward with force, and threw him decisively over my shoulder like a sack of trash. Guoping Liu let out a pathetic shriek, crashing to the ground and raising a cloud of dust. He lay there like a dead pig, even cursing himself and his wife. Cursing himself is fine, but cursing my wife is not. I glared at him, slowly approaching, finally no longer needing to conceal the immense hatred I had carried since my rebirth. I smiled chillingly, my voice like ice. Thuc Lan Ha, do you dare utter another curse? Thuc Lan Ha's pupils constricted. She was too terrified to move. The person I was now was a vengeful spirit returned from the dead to claim her life. If she dared to utter one more word, my fist would truly land on her face. Since my rebirth, I had started taking women's self-defense classes. Not just to stop Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha from arbitrarily hitting and scolding me, but also because of the shadow of my past life. The strength disparity between that man and me had forced me to passively endure abuse again and again. I never wanted to experience that again. If I ever got another chance, I would personally take him down. A few days later, there was good news. Minh Triet Liu had been found. The bad news was far worse. That top wealthy patron with her perverse games had tortured my brother, then casually sold him like a commodity to Myanmar. The police officer, with a grave expression, said they had reported it to the city. Superiors were taking it very seriously and asked us to wait patiently, to trust the authorities. Right then, Guoping Liu let out a scream, his body collapsing. I truly wasn't exaggerating that day. Minh Triet Liu truly was their life. Look at him now, isn't he like a man who has lost his life? As for Thuc Lan Ha, her eyes had rolled back and she had already fainted. A chaotic scene ensued. An ambulance came to take her away. I didn't follow, I went home instead. Combining this with memories from my past life, I knew Minh Triet Liu had only been sold to a scam compound. At this point, he was definitely still alive. He could be a group streamer, and he attracted quite a few wealthy patrons. His appearance was indeed above average. This kind of asset, with exploitable value, would mostly be carefully nurtured by the scam syndicate, used to help them defraud others for profit. As for whether he could return in one piece, that remained to be seen, depending on Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha. I quickly started packing my bags. I didn't need to stay in this house anymore. Surprisingly, several peaceful days passed and I didn't see Guoping Liu or Thuc Lan Ha until I received a message from Thuc Lan Ha. Ban Ha, quickly transfer all the money in your card to me. Your dad has a way to save your brother. I sneered, then decisively deleted the message. However, more messages flooded in. Ban Ha, that's your flesh and blood brother. How can you bear to see him sold abroad, living a life worse than death now? Ban Ha, please, I beg you, you must have savings. Transfer them to that card for me. You ungrateful, wide-eyed wolf. We wasted our efforts raising you this big. Give us back the money we spent raising you. I immediately blocked her, then found Guoping Liu and blocked him too. I knew what Thuc Lan Ha's way was. In his early years, Guoping Liu and some friends were involved in illegal businesses. He never told us, his children, the specifics, and had long since washed his hands of it, now only occasionally drinking and bragging with those friends. That day, after leaving the police station, he had made several inquiries, finally securing a contact, though it was just a very weak peripheral connection. The middleman said, the other side is demanding 5 million yuan for Minh Triet Liu's return to the country. Guoping Liu was ecstatic. Although this was a huge sum, and he didn't have it, as long as he could get his precious son back, that's all that mattered. Naturally, they immediately thought of me a lawyer. In their eyes, I always earned a lot and spent little. Even though I covered all household expenses, I must have saved quite a bit of money. And yes, I did indeed have a small secret stash. Even in my past life, I never told them about it, but I had bigger plans for that money. Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha returned home from the hospital to find the house empty. I had already found a hotel to stay in, waiting to watch them. They would be worried sick, their heads spinning. Sadly, this small town had its drawbacks. The 3-person rule wasn't needed, and even a 2-person rule wouldn't stop them. Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha still managed to find the hotel I was staying at. The door was pounded relentlessly, unable to drown out the vicious curses from outside. I sat at the desk, writing my resignation letter. The moment I sent it, outside, desperate screams erupted. The pleas for mercy from Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha reached my ears with chilling clarity. I had prepared a special surprise for them. I hoped they would like it. Perhaps my precautions were too strong. Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha still hadn't given up. They paraded with banners to my law office. Well, my old law office. Shouting that I was the cruel sister who pushed her brother into a pit of fire, that I was an unfilial daughter, a morally corrupt lawyer, but they had no idea. I had already quit, and my former colleagues were innocent. So, at the entrance of the law office, I had also prepared a surprise for Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha. I heard that they looked like they'd seen a ghost. They had arrived aggressively, only to suddenly turn and flee like mice seeing a cat. But what I enjoyed most wasn't killing my prey in one bite, but occasionally letting them go, then toying with them again, until they were utterly exhausted. Late at night, I dreamt of my past life. Completely defenseless, I ate a drugged meal. Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha dragged me away, handing me over to human traffickers. They giggled as they counted the money, praising me for finally being of some use. And every day I had spent in that dark village, rapidly fast-forwarded, replayed before my eyes. My heart felt as if a large hand was squeezing it, aching so much I couldn't breathe. In the dream, I lay on the ground, slowly scooping up mud and frantically stuffing it into my mouth, unable to wait to die. I couldn't swallow, so I bent down and drank dirty water from the roadside, finally collapsing to the ground, convulsing. Gradually, I stopped moving. I suddenly woke up, feeling the blanket beneath me, soaked with cold sweat. Outside the door, there was a sudden rustling sound. I was just about to get out of bed to check when the noise outside suddenly grew louder. It was late at night, so I could clearly hear Guoping Liu and a group of people. Just then, the room phone on the bedside table rang. "Madam, a moment ago, a thief tried to pick the lock on your door and has been apprehended by security. For safety, please do not go outside for now." I said, "Okay," hung up and went straight to the door. The security guards were about to escort Guoping Liu away. I called out to them. Before anyone could react, I swiftly raised my leg and delivered a powerful kick to Guoping Liu's stomach. "Ugh!" Guoping Liu let out a pathetic scream. He saw me, his face turning livid. "You bitch! Are you trying to kill me?" I glared at him fiercely. "Yes, you think I wouldn't dare? Go on, if you're so capable, sell me off to save your precious son." I shifted my gaze to the stunned security guards. Then I suddenly rubbed my eyes. "I'm sorry, I think I was sleepwalking earlier. Please continue." The next day, I checked out. The front desk, perhaps afraid I would leave a bad review, refunded half of my room fee. I looked at this unexpected, not small sum and smiled. I'm taking a bus back to my hometown to find my grandmother. The old woman who had fainted from a cerebral hemorrhage, as described by the traffickers in my past life, was now vividly waving at me. My nose stung, and I burst into sobbing tears, rushing into my grandmother's arms. Her warm hand stroked my head repeatedly. "What's wrong? Did someone make our Banha sad?" When I was little, we relied on each other. My mother didn't raise me, and her daughter didn't raise her. We were each other's only family. My grandmother's health was still good, though her mind had grown muddled. Thankfully, she still remembered me, and only me. I told my grandmother I would take her far away and helped her pack her belongings. My grandmother didn't ask why, happily saying, "First, go make me a bowl of the glutinous rice wine tea I loved most when I was little." I generously drank a large bowl, then took the small old woman's hand and left. Later, Guoping Liu and Thuc Lan Ha indeed came looking for my grandmother. Seeing the empty house, they were furious. They ransacked the house, searching everywhere for hidden money. What money would an old woman have? She was now sitting beside me, clutching a small purse that, to be frank, contained less than 200 yuan in loose change, and a red amulet she had treasured like a precious gem since childhood. She looked up at me, asking if I had enough money. "I have money too," she said. I smiled, saying, "Plenty. I have so much money, all for you to spend." I took my grandmother to several places, traveling slowly, admiring beautiful sights I had never seen in 2 lives. Finally, we settled in a mountain city. It was very beautiful, with abundant natural landscapes and several 5A-rated scenic areas. More importantly, the mountains here were very high, so high that it was impossible to get out. They had imprisoned my entire life in my past existence. With bodyguards, I searched everywhere according to my memory, but in the end, I could only determine the approximate location of that village. But that was fine, it was enough. The people I sent to follow Guoping Liu and Thucklan Ha reported back. They said that after seeing the usury information I had deliberately left behind, they indeed started frantically borrowing money: consumer loans, large loans, high-interest loans. Relatives, friends, they borrowed from everyone. It still wasn't enough, but they couldn't wait any longer. They feared the other party would lose patience, thinking that even transferring a small amount of money to make Minh Triet lose life a little better would be fine. At worst, they'd pay in installments. They were sure they would gather enough. But they unexpectedly caused a great disaster. Not many days later, they received an anonymous package. The moment it was opened, Thucklan Ha let out a terrifying, inhuman scream, her eyes wide as she fell backward. Guoping Liu trembled like a sieve, the wrinkles on his face shaking erratically. He frantically called the police. Inside the package was one of Minh Triet Liu's legs. "Negotiating installments with vicious criminals, they'll negotiate installments with you too. It's just that you pay in money, and they pay in people." Thucklan Ha and Guoping Liu were too naive, too foolish. From then on, Guoping Liu and Thucklan Ha no longer contacted the criminals directly, but provided all information to the police. Could Minh Triet Liu still return? They had no time to think, for they had bigger troubles. The money transferred could not be retrieved, but they still had to repay the loans. Debt collectors came in wave after wave. Guoping Liu and Thucklan Ha had no money to pay and were beaten again and again. I watched the video sent by their followers. Guoping Liu and Thucklan Ha were beat almost to death, covered in blood, lying on the ground, still blaming each other. "It's all your fault. Minh Triet is still in their hands, they're ruthless killers. And you told me to pay in installments. Isn't it your fault for not being able to borrow money? Your own mother was taken away by that ungrateful child you raised. Who knows where she's happily living now? What could I do? I've borrowed everything I could. Relatives don't even answer my calls anymore. I shouldn't have married you in the first place." Wah! Outside, another group of debt collectors arrived. Thucklan Ha and Guoping Liu simultaneously let out a scream, desperately closing their eyes. The next day, when the police came to arrest them, they discovered the two were barely clinging to life, lying on the ground for an unknown duration. They had me to thank, for it was I who had called the police, reporting them for attempted human trafficking. Otherwise, they would have rotted there before anyone found them. I handed over to the police the audio recordings I had found on Guoping Liu's phone, conversations where he discussed with traffickers about drugging and selling me. Fate had indeed come full circle, leading to the same intersection. Only this time, in this life, I had successfully escaped the misfortune of being sold by them. But I couldn't return temporarily to assist with identification, because I had to join the police in the mountain city to dismantle a human trafficking ring. I had provided clues to the police, claiming that I got lost while hiking in the mountains and accidentally stumbled upon the syndicate. Local police took it very seriously. Due to the challenging terrain, they had repeatedly sent drones to scout, and they had indeed found it. Everything in the village matched my memories from my past life. Until a female police officer gently shook me. "Are you okay?" I licked my dry lips, shook my head, and said, "I'm fine, and thank you again for proactively offering legal assistance to the trafficked women." The female officer extended her hand, shaking mine solemnly. I smiled. It's what I should do. On the day of the operation, I quietly waited in the back. My heart was turbulent, but my face showed no emotion, until I saw the rescued women, old and young. The oldest could barely walk, her wrinkled face completely unrecognizable from her appearance when she first arrived. The youngest, I looked at that child, and a furious anger suddenly surged within me. I grieved because in my past life, my tragedy wasn't unique. It was just a tiny fraction of tens of thousands of unseen victims. I tried to suppress the rage in my heart. My gaze fell, then suddenly fixed on a figure. Calm, reason, everything vanished in that instant. I sprinted towards that man, delivering a powerful kick to his body, pinning him down and beating him. All the martial arts techniques my teacher had taught me were forgotten. I used only the most primal method to unleash the fire of my anger. The man, whose entire body was bloated, was pinned firmly beneath me, unable to move, his face covered in fresh blood, begging for mercy in agony. Someone reacted and pulled me away. I was crying, but no sound came out. The female officer embraced me, comforting me. Finally, I burst into loud sobs for myself, for the me of my past life, and for all the unfortunate women here. The grief condensed into visible arrows that tore through the mountain air, leaving behind lingering cries. All those who deserved punishment had been caught. Guoping Liu and Thucklan Ha were permanently paralyzed and faced prison sentences. After their release, with no one to care for them, they were found by neighbors a few days later, dead beside a trash can. The trafficked women and children, I personally provided them with legal assistance. Leaders from women's associations took them in. Those who missed home were escorted back safely. Those who didn't remember or didn't want to return could stay in the mountain city. The government uniformly arranged jobs for them. The investigation into Minh Triet also saw new progress. The authorities had gotten involved. After negotiations between the two countries, all Chinese citizens in the scam compound will soon be repatriated. I had someone inquire. It was learned that Minh Triet's name was not on the list. Perhaps he had died when his leg was severed, or perhaps one day he had accidentally provoked those ruthless criminals and was trampled to death like an ant. I took a deep breath. It was all over. The painful memories of my past life would no longer haunt my late-night dreams, keeping me from peaceful sleep. At this moment, nestled in my grandmother's arms, smelling the detergent on her clothes, I slowly closed my eyes, certain it would be a sweet dream. The following year, my grandmother passed away. She had proactively mentioned her arrangements. I asked her where she wished to rest, and she said she didn't know, her hand clutching that red amulet. People often say leaves return to their roots, but my grandmother couldn't find her home anymore. She was a daughter, abandoned by her parents since childhood. Later, somehow, she followed my grandfather and somehow had children, gradually forgetting her past. She lived only for the present. I buried my grandmother along with that amulet. Then I left the mountain city. The following year, I successfully passed my exams. I was admitted to the University of Political Science and Law. I continued my postgraduate studies, specializing in judicial administration regarding gender-based violence, advocating for women on issues of domestic violence, sexual violence, human trafficking, and harassment. To win them the protection of the law, I met many helpless women. I always told them, trust the law, trust us. Under the late-night desk lamp, I gently sipped a mouthful of glutinous rice wine tea, its warmth spreading throughout my body. The end.